You're listening to the Better in Bavaria podcast, hosted by U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria Public Affairs, where we share stories and highlight the people behind them, the soldiers and Army civilians who support our readiness mission, all while making our community a great place to work, live, and raise a family.
Hello everyone, welcome back to your new favorite podcast, Better in Bavaria. I'm your co-host, Linda A. Reed, with U.S. Army Garrison Public Affairs. I'm a lucky American Army civilian living and working in lovely Germany.
Willkommen! I'm also a public affairs officer and your co-host, Andreas Kreuzer, and I'm from Bavaria, Germany.
Thank you, listeners and subscribers, for sharing your time with us as we spotlight our garrison and what makes it so very special. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm a little nervous because our boss is here in the studio. He's not only our boss, but he's the boss.
Yes, that's right. Our guest today is the commander of the United States Army Garrison Bavaria, Colonel Kevin A. Poole. Welcome, Colonel.
Hey, good to be here. Now, Linda, there's no need to be nervous. You know, nobody's grading you. I get it. I'm the boss, but I'm just a normal old guy. And your friendly neighborhood garrison commander, Kevin Poole, as you mentioned before. Thanks for having me here, guys.
So thank you again for being here today, and thank you for telling me I don't need to be nervous. But what we'd really like to know, Colonel, before we get started, is why is it better in Bavaria for you?
Oh, man, why not? I'm sitting in the room with two Bavarians. And where do you start? Just start from the first sense of sight. Like when I first landed in this free state of Bavaria in 2003, and when you descend out of the clouds, and you look across the countryside, and it's so green and it's so pristine. Everything, even from above, you can just see the order and the peacefulness, especially in the springtime when you see the different array of flowers and like the yellow fields. And then when you land and you get a chance to experience the culture, the rich tradition, the history, some of the friendliest people you will ever get to meet once you get to meet them, because sometimes Germans are a little bit guarded. When you just chance contact, they won't necessarily speak to you, but when they bring you into their homes and you interact with them, you become part of their family. The beer, I don't drink alcohol, but I heard the beer is pretty good. Maybe not as good as Budweiser back in the States. Andreas, I know the last podcast you were talking about the flavored water that you had. But the cuisine, the beer, the language, the traditions, the history, it's just something to behold. That's just skimming the surface of this place.
As a local German, it makes me happy to hear about your great experiences and how much you're enjoying our community. In an earlier podcast, we gave tips for newcomers to Germany. Do you have any tips for those experiencing Bavaria for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I would tell you is if your sponsor hasn't gotten a hold of you yet, get onto our social media sites. All you got to do is just Google U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria, and it's going to give you all kinds of websites. It's going to give you our official website, but then it's going to direct you to our Facebook page. We've got a Twitter account. We've got Instagram. And they're just loaded with information that is going to make life that much easier as you transition to Bavaria. And then to talk to people who've been to Germany before. 9 times out of 10, if you're one of our major large installations in the United States, you're going to run into somebody who, at one point in time, who's been stationed in Germany, in Bavaria in particular. Ask questions. Be inquisitive, be adventurous. It is only going to make your tour here in Bavaria that much better. If you're open to new things, if you're open to new ways of living, new culture, learn a little bit of the language, it's going to be awesome. And you will find that there are things that go on here in Bavaria in particular that something akin to what you read about in fairy tales as a child. There are castles, old churches that are as old as our country, that are in walking distance 9 times out of 10 from where you're living. It's just a wonderful place to be. But we got a lot of information out there on the virtual space that can help you transition into U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria much better. So just be inquisitive, get onto those websites, and it's going to help you as you move here.
I think folks are going to find that very helpful. Each season, each weekend here has its own holiday and celebrations, it seems like. And aren't we lucky that the community is so welcoming and that most people speak English? So speaking of language, we all know that you've been studying German. Do you have a favorite phrase or word?
So it's funny. I've been studying German unofficially for the past 20 years. And many of you all know my wife is a Berliner. So I've been studying it unofficially for 20 years, but I officially taking classes for the past year and a half. I kind of took a break since I've been in this job. But one of the things I always tell new folks when they get here, particularly during my newcomers brief, is when you go out there and you experience, when you go to restaurants, when you go to grocery stores, if the first word that comes out of your mouth is English, you're wrong. Try. You're going to screw it up, but try. If the first word that comes out of your mouth is German, and then everything else after that is probably going to be something screwed up or probably English, but at least you try. And then the person you're engaging with, whether it be at the restaurant or at a grocery store, the German that you're engaging with is going to look at you and they're going to smile, and they're probably going to proceed to speak better English than you do. But at least you try it. And then the next time you go out, you speak a phrase. And then the next time you go to a restaurant or the mall, you can speak a complete sentence. And just keep getting better every time. And you're going to screw it up. There's no getting around it. And I'll tell you, how much time I got here? Can I go as long as I want? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna keep going, because I think the German language is just, it's so fascinating to me, because at first glance it seems very complicated, which it is. It's a complex language, but it's a systematic language that makes sense. And like, for example, the word Zeug, they'll put the word Zeug behind anything, like a Fahrzeug. It's a driving thing, or a Flugzeug, a flying thing. We call it a plane. Well, where did the word plane come from? Germans they make sense. Now, some things don't make sense. Like, I find fascinating. I think it's a beautiful language. Like, the longest word in the German language, Andreas, and I'm going to give it a shot here, and you're going to tell me how I did. It's Rindfleisch Etiquierungsaufgabensübertragungsgesetz.
Oh, that's a long one, sir.
Do you know what that means?
Yes, but probably you will never know this word in your life, especially as a vegetarian.
So that is a very complex German word to describe the correct labeling of beef. But and I'll tell you, the German language is so fascinating. It's so complex. But just try it. Just get out and try it. Because another thing I tell folks that come here from the States is like, okay, so name any state that you're from, whether it be Tennessee or Nashville, Tennessee, and you're in a 7-Eleven, and you're in there and you're getting your slushie and your pack of Red Bulls, which my Sergeant Major likes to drink. And someone is in front of you at the counter and they're speaking a different language of some other country. And they're speaking to that cashier at that 7-Eleven in Nashville in their own language, expecting that cashier to understand what they're saying. How would you look at that person? You'd probably look at them strange. Why? Because you're in America. So why would we do the same thing here when we're here as guests here in Germany? And I know I'm guilt shaming a lot of people, but I should, because that's how it should be. We should be just as open-minded and desiring to expand our horizons when we go outside these gates. And that's very important. So yeah, that's my German rant, Andreas. How'd you like that?
Very, very good, sir.
Awesome.
And as a German, I appreciate it that you're learning our language and more about our culture. And those are good words. I can see how they would be helpful to learn. Is it true you lived in Germany on several occasions, even as a military child?
I did. So I have spent my entire life in or associated with the military. My father is a retired Army officer, so I actually lived in Germany for 3 years. As a kid, I lived in Stuttgart, lived all over the place. My mother's from Panama. So this isn't my first go around in Germany. I was actually stationed in Hohenfels for 7 years, from about 2003 to 2010. So yeah, this is Germany has become like my second home.
That's
I don't
great.
think I'm gonna get my German citizenship anytime soon, but yeah, I'm closely connected to this country.
So can you share any examples of cultural shocks you may have experienced in Germany?
So I can tell you, cultural shocks, not so much as an adult, but I can remember when we first got to Stuttgart, Germany, coming from the United States, and one of the things that stuck out to me were the little things, like the doorknobs, for example. I found it fascinating, the doorknobs, because we're used to the ball turning knob, and as an 11, 12-year-old kid, experiencing something as mundane but so fascinating as a different doorknob. And then the windows, like going to the window in the Army Lodge that we stayed in, and it's like, how brilliant is it that you can kip a window instead of actually opening it? It took me and my parents a while to figure it out. But the little things like that, and then like cultural shock, it's always exciting and can be quite intimidating, experiencing a new culture and a new language. And it can be scary at times, particularly when you leave the gate. But you just got to get out there and dive in. And I've found, even when I go to other countries, I lived in Naples, Italy for 3 years. Just going out there, nobody's going to bite your head off because you speak a different language. Most people, when you encounter them, are going to be warm and welcoming, and just being open to those new experiences. So for me as a kid first coming to Germany, those were a couple of the culture shocks for me. It took us a while to get used to things closing early on Saturdays and then not being open on Sundays. I can remember my parents struggling to get used to that. But in the years that have gone by, in the years that I've spent in Germany, I've actually come to appreciate not having anything to do on Sunday, but maybe going to a nice restaurant in the afternoon and then going for a walk, which you will see lots of Germans doing on Sunday afternoons, particularly when the weather is good in the summertime, which I appreciate, as opposed to the rat race of going to the mall or going somewhere on Sundays where everything is open. So yeah.
Yeah, so I can relate to the different cultures. My wife and I also grew up in different cultures. There are things I just can't assume are automatic. Neither it's wrong or right. It's just different and sometimes challenging.
Right. Yeah. And different is good. Different and challenging is good. Different and challenging makes us better, and particularly when we embrace those challenges. And they're not comfortable, but uncomfortable is also good, because that helps get us out of our comfort zone. And when we get out of our comfort zone, we broaden our horizons and we get better as individuals, as humans, and collectively as well.
Oh, I love this topic. I think it's so interesting when we compare cultures. I wish we could talk about this all day, but we're also interested in your path to commander and your career in the Army. Colonel, can you tell us about where you went to school and why you chose the Army?
So why I chose the Army, I'll start there. So I will rewind to about 1982, roughly. I was about 6 years old, and my mom bought me my first G.I. Joe. Do you know what a G.I. Joe is?
I think
Do we have G.I. Joes here in Germany? No, 9. So my mom bought me my first G.I. Joes, and he's rock and roll. He was the M60 gunner. Now, of course, it doesn't help that my dad was also in the Army. But from the time my mom bought me my first G.I. Joe, I was done, and I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So my formative years as a kid were focused on that. There was a while there, after my 9th grade year, the summer of my 9th grade year, the last day of school, I was about 5'6". When I came to school the first day of my 10th grade year, I was 6'2". So there were delusions of grandeur for a couple of months, maybe a year or two, where I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player. But that ended pretty quickly in college when I realized that when I was the third shortest guy on my college basketball team, probably wasn't going to happen. So I, got my mind focused back on being a career Army officer. So I went to the Military College of South Carolina, which is in Charleston, South Carolina, a beautiful city. Studied there. Actually, I went to junior college in Panama, at Panama Canal College, because my dad had got stationed there right after I graduated high school. So I went there for a year, lived with my parents in Panama, and then I transferred to the Military College of South Carolina, did 3 years there, graduated by the skin of my teeth. I didn't know I was going to graduate until 2 days before graduation. Don't ask what my grade point average was. In May of 1998, started my career in the Army, and it has been a whirlwind tour ever since.
So the Army has recently returned to the old tagline, "Be all you can be." Why would you recommend joining the Army?
Wow, that is a loaded question. The first thought that comes to my mind is being a part of something greater than myself is always made the difference. Maybe it's just my personality. I'm not the one that is an entrepreneur. I'm exposing myself a little bit, so forgive me. There are a lot of very talented people out there that are entrepreneurs and are trailblazers, and they're going to do their own thing and all about individuality, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. If you have the talent to do those things, to create your own business, to be your own employer, cool. That's cool. That's not my personality. I am more along the lines of a person who wants to be a part of something and devote myself to that greater organization or that greater good. Part of that could be my upbringing in the military and seeing, the institution my father was a part of. But being a part of that, and joining myself with brothers and sisters to my left and my right, in their strength residing in me and my strength residing in them, and us collectively building together. And then the relationships that you form and the bonds that you forge throughout that journey, for me, is why I would encourage someone to join the military. Yeah, you can talk about all the benefits. You get college educations. You get to travel the world. The pay is actually the compensation when you add everything all together to include your health benefits, paid time off. When you lump all of your entitlements together with your pay, it's actually not a bad deal. The benefits far outweigh, those that the average 19-year-old working at name your grocery store or fast food restaurant would get. Is, when you clock in at said grocery store at 8 o'clock in the morning, you clock out at 4 p.m., nobody cares about, your well-being, what you do, outside of your work hours. Nobody cares about your health care. They don't care about the benefits that you get. They don't care about your time off. They don't care about, your mental well-being, or whether or not you have children or whether you have adequate child care. You're on your own. But in the military, we do now. We're not perfect, but we do our best to take care of not just the soldier, but the family and their overall well-being as well. There's tons of programs and benefits associated to that end to make sure the soldier is taken care of. That said, 19-year-old civilian working at a grocery store or a fast food restaurant is not necessarily going to get. So the benefits from that perspective far outweigh, I think, the civilian sector.
We are going to take a quick break. We will be right back with our guest, USAC Bavaria Commander Colonel Kevin Poole.
Like what you're hearing? Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, like, and share our episodes of Better in Bavaria. Visit our USAG Bavaria social media to learn more. And remember, it's better in Bavaria.
Welcome back. I'm Andreas Kreuzer. I'm joined by my co-host Linda A. Reed and our today's guest, the Garrison Commander, Colonel Kevin A. Poole.
Thanks, Andreas. Okay, Colonel, we're going to get down to what our listeners really want to know. Yes, your days are crazy long. You have tons of responsibility, and no day is probably ever the same for you. But how cool is it to be the commander of the garrison?
Linda, that's a great question. Cool. I would also say, and this is me being fully transparent, it is intimidating, humbling, and it is an honor and a privilege. I say intimidating because I didn't realize before I took this job the immensity of everything that we do as a garrison for this community, from safety and security, from our police, military policemen and our military police officers, our Department of the Army civilians, our firefighters, our engineers, our grounds and roads and grounds crews, our snow truck drivers, folks out there laying asphalt, fixing roads, our environmental division folks that are making sure we're in compliance with host nation environmental laws. There are 1,001 things that are going on across this garrison that happen in order to make any city in the United States run. And to be a part of that, I say a part of that because I don't make all of these things run. I enable the organization to be able to provide these services. It's an honor to be in this position, and it actually is quite cool. But I would use humbling and a privilege and an honor more to describe those things. And I say it's intimidating because every morning when I wake up, there is something or someone that, if I do or fail to do my job, is going to be significantly impacted, both from their work perspective and a quality of life perspective for their families. Whether it be going into do a leader walkthrough of a child development center to make sure I catch something that someone might miss, which could potentially put one of our children in danger. If I'm not on my game, I could affect quality of life for our soldiers and our family members, civilians and retirees. So it's an intimidating task. And every morning when I brushing my teeth and I'm looking myself in the mirror, I'm thinking to myself, I can't screw this up. I got to be on my game all day and a day, not every day, a day, to make sure I'm doing what I got to do to be able to provide, to enable this garrison staff, the headquarters, to be able to provide for safety and security, quality of life, infrastructure of support, to make sure our units are able to conduct their mission and our families are safe. In addition to that, when you talk about local engagements, we have got to be able to, because we're Americans living overseas. We're not tourists here. We are living and working in Germany. So what is critical is to maintain effective and quality partnerships and friendships with our host nation partners. So one of my largest tasks, and quite frankly one of the best, is to be able to maintain those partnerships, in communication, open and honest communication with our local mayors, local leadership, from our mayors to our Landrats, which are essentially a German word for a county commissioner, for lack of a better term, and other governmental officials, to ensure that we are doing what we need to do to maintain peace and harmony for our civilians and our soldiers and family members living overseas here in Germany, and then also just to build international relations, because we have been, as the military, we have been here for over 70 years, in helping to provide security and defense against aggression for the European continent. We've actually done a pretty good job of that, and my goal is to keep that going for as long as possible. And part of that is maintaining good international relations with our host nation partners.
So I'm glad you enjoy our culture here and also the community relation with our host nation officials. You're also in the Garrison like a mayor. And there's so many opportunities here to experience, like every weekend there's another fest, or in winter there are like Christmas markets.
That's one thing I forgot to mention about living here in Bavaria, fests and Christmas markets. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you mentioned that and you got me all excited about Bavaria again. Some of the best parties you will ever find, people, are fests here in Bavaria, especially in the summertime. And then in Christmas time are absolutely magical Christmas markets. Linda, you got here too late, but you are about to experience a treat with the Christmas markets. Sorry, Andreas, didn't mean to interrupt you.
Good.
Any shopping opportunities would be fantastic, and all of us will definitely have so many great memories of being stationed here.
Absolutely.
Colonel Poole, what are some of the top highlights when you think about what you've experienced so far?
So some of the top highlights for me of what I've experienced so far, and I mentioned before, is being able to interact with a lot of the social engagements, the fests. I'll tell you, just a week and a half ago, I had the honor of participating in the Fisher Fest in the town of Grafenweer, where as part of that Fisher Fest, the leaders of the town of Grafenweer, with military leaders, General Carpenter was out there, myself, other brigade commanders and sergeants majors, we teamed up with Grafenweer leadership, and we did boat races on there's a little pond in the center of the town. I must say the pond was quite gross, littered with goose excrement, at least on the bottom of the pond. But yeah, we raced. We had a good time. We threw each other into the pond. But it was just fascinating to see an entire community come together. And the community of Grafenweer has been so welcoming of us as Americans living here. It's like we're all one community, and I find it absolutely amazing. The Fisher Fest, we helped raise the maypole. Here in Bavaria, you'll find raising of the maypole. That's like in the beginning of spring. That is a tradition that dates back to the Middle Ages. Nobody really even knows, but every small town, they raise this maypole. And I got to participate in that. And the city of Grafenweer has existed since the 1300s or something like that. Oh. And every year they've done that. And I have had the opportunity, along with many members of the U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria community, had an opportunity to participate in that. And I find that fascinating that we all take part in these very historical traditions in this great state of Bavaria.
Colonel, we thank you for being here today and sharing your personal thoughts on the Army way of life, why people should join and why they should stay. Our community knows you are very active in the Garrison's social media activities. You do a Friday message on Facebook, giving us a recap and a preview of activities going on in our community. Could you tell us about your newest adventure, your famous monthly AFN radio show?
Yeah, so that's Dive In with Colonel Poole. It's an opportunity for me to, every month, we work with the team to come up with important topics we want to communicate to the masses. Because social media is cool, but I've found it seems like people listen to radio a lot, especially in the morning when they're driving into work, and that is a perfect opportunity for us to target, maybe not target, but to communicate with the masses while they're driving into work. So name any topic that is important. Talking about military spouse appreciation, from the different observances we've got going on from month to month. Back in, April, I had the opportunity for Spouse Appreciation Month. I dragged my wife onto the radio show. And we actually talked about stuff. We actually got in an argument on the radio show. Well, no, we didn't get into an argument, but no, just give folks an opportunity to take a glance into our lives as Garrison leaders, to kind of let them know, like, hey, we're all the same in this thing. We all got challenges. We all got our own strengths and weaknesses, and we are here to get better together. So that was an opportunity for me to kind of communicate to to the masses. So the Dive In with Colonel Poole AFN radio show, I think it's been, and every time I've done it, I've had, that afternoon, 3 or 4 people, come up to me and say, hey, I heard you on the radio show. Thanks for putting that out. So social media is cool, but I think radio is also important as well.
Dive In with Colonel Poole, the name still makes me laugh. Your show is at the perfect time at 7 in the morning, so it's prime listening for those folks headed into work. And it's usually the first Monday of the month?
Yep, usually first Monday of the month. And, like for example, September, we're going to probably do something for Hispanic Heritage Month. So we picked themes and topics that are appropriate in time and space for what we're all going through at any given time.
Like the Army overall, you have really made a presence in social media. Why do you think that's important for an Army commander?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like this. I mean, if you look at my own personal Facebook page, I don't post a lot on it. I'm not a social media guy for the most part, but I realize that is the way of the world right now. And as a commander, I personally feel if you're not taking advantage of the social media sphere, you're going to get left behind. Good, bad, or indifferent, you can agree with or disagree, but it is the way it is. Our young folks, our 19 to 26-year-old folks, they live and operate and they thrive in the virtual space, and we have got to be able to capitalize off of that. And we've got to be able to get into that space in order to further our narrative and keep us all on the same track, enable flat communications across the community, and that's one of the better ways to do it. I'm old, so I still haven't mastered the art of Instagram and how to effectively communicate, but every day I'm trying and I'm getting better. But I think we got to realize that that's the way of the world right now, and we've got to maximize our opportunities there.
Well, I know our Garrison really appreciates your support in getting messages out. I know I sound like I'm polishing the apple, but it's true because your Facebook Lives are super popular.
Oh, thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
And in PO, it's great to try different platforms, social media, radio, and of course, podcasts. Colonel, as we wrap up, what would you like our audience to remember from today's session?
Hey, so big takeaways. Well, give you a little bit of a window into who I am, and what informs how I think in my decision making, which is always a good thing. You kind of let people know where you're thinking. I think it's important for our young folks that might listen to this, anybody who is between the ages of 18 and 25, or even 18 and 30, who's thinking about a career in the military, who just happened to type in Bavaria on their podcast search and come across this podcast. The military is a great place to be. U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria is a great place to live and work. Now, don't get me wrong. The military has its, rough times. And it isn't all positive. Make no mistake about that. But if you were to ask me, looking back across my 25 years in the Army, the good have far outweighed the bad. So I think that's one of the most important takeaways for this podcast, I think. And then a third takeaway is that we as a garrison are here for you all. We're going to do the best job that we can to communicate across all of our different platforms, whether it be the virtual space, whether it be AFN radio. If I got carrier pigeons, I'm going to use carrier pigeons to make sure and get folks the information they need.
Or MySpace.
Did you just say MySpace? Did you have a MySpace account?
Yes, I do.
I did not, but my wife had a MySpace account. Natalie, do you even know what MySpace is? Okay. So, no, we don't have MySpace. But just getting folks the information they need. We're here by whatever means necessary to keep the community informed, to keep the community safe, and to make life better in Bavaria.
Well, Colonel, thank you so much. Everybody in the studio and everybody listening knows how busy you are. So thank you for talking to our listeners. We really appreciate your deep experience, your support, and your care for the people depending on your leadership. Ooh, what's that music?
That music means it's time to learn a new German phrase. And since we've been talking about the army, here's how you say be all you can be in German. Sei alles, was du sein kannst.
Oh, that is hot. I love that.
Are you ready to try?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes,
Linda, you
let's
ready?
do it.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
Sei alles, was du sein kannst. Very good, Linda. Good job.
Very good. Better in Bavaria is hosted by the U.S. Army Garrison Bavaria Public Affairs team with producers Kayla, Overton, and Natalie, Simmel. Contact us through our social media or website at home.army.mil/Bavaria. Tell us what you think and send us suggestions for future episodes. And remember, it's better in Bavaria.